I'm back! Tar Sands Timmy, here to tell you everything is still coming up crude. Bitumen. Dirty, sandy, mucky oil glue that takes loads of energy, depth, and destruction to get to market. But beautiful crude, nonetheless. And don't worry, the Keystone XL pipeline will happen. Sure, there's been a little public outcry and a little conflict of interest problem with the company the State Department hired to do environmental impact reporting. But how were they to know they were also working for TransCanada, the company whose pipeline they were reviewing? I mean, this is a reputable company who's done these environmental reviews before. Like for a pipeline in the Caspian Sea, they declared safe. Oops. Or for ExxonMobil. Oops. Or for a pipeline project in the Amazon. Oops. Oops. That wasn't... Oops. Good thing Tar Sands Timmy has a few people working for him on the inside. And if for some strange, un-American reason the Keystone XL pipeline doesn't happen, there are plenty of Keystone clones in the works. Thanks to my profitable pipeline pals, there's another Keystone happening right under your nose. And it'll move almost as much crude as Keystone XL, making it the first pipeline to get beautiful tar sands gunk all the way from Canada to the Gulf. And who knows where after that? Best part is, Enbridge has plans for 5,000 miles of pipeline. You know, Enbridge Incorporated, the company that brought you the largest pipeline spill in the history of the United States. So don't you worry about Tar Sands Timmy. Either way, I'll be doing just fine. Unless you people keep getting in the way. Thanks to my corporate pals, oil lobbyists, and political connections, it'll be coming up dirty crude for years to come.
And that's the way that we start things off, with that ethical black stuff that we're trying to get out of our country as fast as possible.
Oh, we gotta sell to China.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody's putting two and two together, seeing that we're shipping all our crude out instead of building refineries.
Well, you know, that would just give us energy independence.
And that would give us jobs and, like, our own economy. Far be it from me to frack things up, though. You're listening to Video Radio. We got a clip. Let's also run this.
A small but vocal protest gathers outside the White House. At its head, a Hollywood star determined to get a strong message across. That the US government's plans to extract shale gas via a process called fracking must stop.
All Americans, all citizens of the planet actually need the same basic things, which is uncontaminated fresh water, which is unfortunately in a dwindling supply, and a climate that is stable enough that we can actually survive in it and thrive in it. And President Obama and the BLM are planning to frack the public land.
In this computer animation, we can see the process in more detail. It involves blasting a mixture of water and chemicals into the ground in order to split shale rock and release gas to be used as fuel. Gas that traditional methods of extraction cannot exploit. So popular is it around the world that nearly 2/3 of all the new oil and gas wells in recent years have used fracking. Large energy firms point to the economic benefits that tapping into this previously unusable element can bring. But opponents say it is dangerous both to the people who live near fracking sites and to the environment, both below and above ground. Last year, President Obama promised to take every possible action to develop natural gas safely, promising that it would add hundreds of thousands of jobs to the economy. But while that may be music to the ears of large energy companies, these activists certainly don't like the sound of it.
And it's so good to see that mainstream media caught up to this.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But no, wait a second. That wasn't from mainstream media.
Hang on, that was an Arabian station, Al Jazeera.
Oh, okay. Mainstream. Okay.
Mainstream enough.
It's really funny because, you know, Enbridge is pumping out these commercials for mainstream media right now, and they don't realize 75% of the people don't even watch commercials on mainstream TV anymore.
And what nobody talks about is the amount of water that's required to frack the ground.
Or the fact that after fracking, you can light your well water on fire because it's releasing oil and gas that shouldn't be released. Mother Nature is really good at taking care of these things. Shell is not.
And, of course, it's a huge part of Christy Clark's energy policy as well.
I know, but she has some very vital people standing in the way of her pipeline dreams. Oh, Pipeline Dreams.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, that's cool. Let's run this.
Members of the Fort Nelson First Nations gathered in downtown Vancouver to push for a reform in the relationship between First Nations, government, and gas companies. Lands Director Lana Lowe says the trio have had strained talks in the past, brought on by a disagreement on the long-term impact fracking has on the land and people in northern BC.
We're asking the province, we're asking industry to work with us so we can figure out, okay, you guys need this much water, is that okay? And if so, what are the effects going to be? We need to cap it. Right now it's just a free-for-all. It's a gold rush for water, and nobody seems to be concerned about that except for us.
The amount of water being withdrawn has increased by a staggering amount over the last few years. This time-lapse graphic shows the water withdrawals in Fort Nelson First Nations territory since November 2006. As you can see, there was a significant jump in withdrawals starting October 2010. The concern is that if the process harms the land, those who rely on it, like avid hunter Newt Lowe, will be left out in the cold.
What's really alarming to me is 3 years ago, I've noticed used to be abundance of fish. In my opinion, I'm a pretty good fisherman. I went and I done my usual thing looking for fish, and I went 3 days, never caught a fish.
Without an agreement pending, legal action is the next step for Fort Nelson First Nations. They plan on fighting gas companies' ability to acquire water withdrawal licenses in court. Jeff Clowers in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
So we got to keep that LNG market going.
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Liquid natural gas, yeah.
Oh, LNG. I got to stay on top of that. We're doing the actual stories around here. That Fort Nelson thing, the graphic that they had on there on the water extraction is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, water's just a commodity and humans have no right to it.
Yeah, according to the Nestle Corporation. We're going to work out some of our technical bugs right now. If you're starting to hear some fuzziness happening, that's because I'm not doing this. Okay. While I fix that, hang on a second. I have a small fire to put out right now. Let's run something about Site C, probably something you haven't heard about.
In 1985, BC was 73% self-sufficient in food production. We've got a growing population, a shrinking agricultural land base. Some of our best land is going under urban development. Today, we only produce 48% of our food. That's a 2006 Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries statistic. And the actual, at the time, only 43% of our vegetables that we're creating. So we're going in the wrong direction. Richard Neufeld, who was formerly the Energy Minister of British Columbia, he said over 50% of the electricity from Site C is needed to go north to the Horn River Basin, north of Fort Nelson, to fuel the shale gas development of the Horn River Basin. Now, there's no transmission line north to the Horn River Basin. So when you hear that Site C, the new estimate is $7.9 billion, that would be, if that plan happens, that will be plus 400 kilometers of new transmission lines. So, $7.9 billion is a lowball estimate. January 2010, an industry magazine, the Oil and Gas Inquirer, had an article about how they want to send Horn River gas to the Alberta tar sands because they extract that tar sands with steam. It's called SAGD, steam-assisted gravity extraction. They need electricity to create that steam, so they're going to flood a river, create electricity, use it to make highly ecologically damaging natural gas, unconventional gas, send it to the tar sands to take dirty oil, and here's the clincher. That tar sands oil, they're looking at taking it to the west coast on the Horn River, the Enbridge pipeline. Supertanker port in killer whale habitat on the west coast.
So make sure you check out their website on that one. And what she talked about links into our Municipal Sustainability Project right away.
Yeah.
50% of BC's food is actually created by BCers.
Yeah, the rest is imported.
And, there's that fuel industry bonusing from our food.
They sure are.
You wouldn't believe the tons of food a community like us creates or requires to eat every day. And you're not told about the fact that now they're going to flood out a whole bunch of our farmland for a dam that we don't need.
To sell gas to people across the country or across the sea.
Collective.
We're going to frack up our land to take out tar sands, which screws the environment. I mean,
yeah.
what a good policy that is.
I'm so happy about this. You can see the happiness in this radio broadcast. We've got some guys with some innovation and some change. Make sure you check out our Municipal Sustainability Project. But check this out. Here's some guys doing stuff.
Los Angeles and Paris are part of an experiment called the Megacities Carbon Project. The goal is to monitor greenhouse gases and look for long-term trends to see if environmental policies to lower these pollutants actually work. 16 highly sensitive sensors are being installed throughout Southern California on rooftops and on media towers like this one. These instruments work continuously to analyze what's in the air. Scientists also use what's called remote sensing to monitor the air. Instruments placed on planes and on a satellite look at sunlight bouncing off the surface of the Earth. By looking at how the air changes the quality of that light, scientists can detect the fingerprints of carbon dioxide and methane. One additional sensor is on top of historic Mount Wilson, where Albert Einstein and Edwin Hubble came to gaze up into the sky. Now, Stan Sander of NASA says this remote sensing equipment looks down into the LA basin and analyzes the air. Duran says developing ways to measure and track emissions of greenhouse gases is urgent. As seen here, the world's 40 largest cities as a group emit the most fossil fuel carbon dioxide after China and the U.S. While developed countries are trying to reduce emissions,
in the developing world, particularly in the South America, Africa, and Asia, we're seeing explosive growth in cities because of the combined effects of urbanization and economic growth.
He says many of these growing cities are at higher risk for climate change because of what they are spewing into the air. Elizabeth Lee for VOA News, Los Angeles.
So you can deny the climate change all you want. There's actual scientists out there that are taking a look at it.
I don't think we need to study it anymore, though. I think we need to do something.
That's why we've got the Municipal Sustainability Project trying to stop those greenhouse gases from forming around our municipalities. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Stay tuned for more from Radio Free Canada. This is Video Radio. Thanks for tuning in.
At some point in the year 2011, the Earth will hold 7 billion people on its surface, more people than any point in recorded history. While some welcome this latest member of humanity with excitement, others with fear. When people hear that we've been adding 1 billion people every 15 years, they imagine humanity's growth to look something like this. But 1 billion people isn't as high a percentage of humanity as it used to be. For instance, imagine this roller coaster car represents 1 billion people. If we add another car, or 1 billion more people, our train has doubled in length. But if we want to double the train again, we can't just add one more train car. We'd have to add 2. Every time we make the train longer, one train car represents a smaller and smaller percentage of the train. If it takes 15 years to add each new train car, then mathematically speaking, the growth rate is slowing. In order for the growth rate to stay constant, the train would have to keep doubling every 15 years, instead of just adding one car. Human population growth is the same way. In 1804, the world's population hit 1 billion. By 1927, that number had doubled. But by 1960, that number had only grown by half. By 1975, it was only growing by a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. To see how population growth is slowing down, we look at a number called the global total fertility rate, which is the average number of children each woman is having. And over the last 40 years, that rate has been rapidly falling. According to the UN's current data, the world's population is due to peak in 25 years. After it peaks, it will start to go down. By the end of the century, we'll be losing 1 billion people every 20 years. This year, the world's population will hit 7 billion. In 75 years, we'll be back here again. Think about it.